Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vickie Poole. I'm a life coach, health coach, and hypnotist at The Enlightened Peach. And this podcast is all about embracing our mosaic life. And some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life? Well, it's recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. I will be your host and we'll have special guests from time to time. As a matter of fact, I have a wonderful guest for you today. But if you have any ahas or questions, please leave a comment or a voice message. So now, let's get started. So I'm going to introduce you to George. And right now I'm looking for his bio that I have on here so I can read it to you. But George and I have known each other for just a little while. We've actually never met in person, but we both went to the Health Coach Institute, which I've talked about before on other podcasts. So I'm going to go ahead and read you his bio and then we'll get started. So George, and is it Cordoba?
Yes, that's correct.
Cordoba? Okay, and you've got an S at the end. So is it George or George's?
It's actually George's.
George's. Okay. So what I thought. Okay. So George's is a stage 4 melanoma with metastasis in the brain cancer survivor. Let me move this so I can get to it a little bit easier. He fought the disease for 10 years and had 10 surgeries. Pharmaceuticals nearly destroyed his body. So he took the natural holistic route to heal himself, and he's here with us today because of that. This July 12th will be his 11th year free of cancer. Wow, what an amazing thing. He became a holistic transformational health and life coach, functional nutritionist, professional speaker, a Reiki teacher, and he's also an author. I actually have his book here today, and he's had an update on it, so he'll share that with you too. He is completing his rapid transformational therapist diploma later this year to add value to his clients. And Georgia says, I now see my experience as a blessing because it gave me a chance to sing the song I was born to sing. 6 years ago, he transitions from being a chief technology officer to working with people with cancer or the threat of recurrence. He helps them transform their health and vitality. George's is an Amazon bestselling author for the book Beating the Odds about his holistic journey to conquer advanced cancer. And we'll share in our comments afterwards. I'll share in the written part all of his contact information. And then and he will tell you a little bit about how to get in touch with him. So we had actually jumped on here just a few minutes before we were going to go live, and we were having a conversation. I said, wait, this is gold here. Let's don't let them all not get this information. So we decided we would just go ahead and hit record and start over. So George's, it is amazing to have you here. It has been, I don't even know how many years ago, I did a live with you as interviewing you on Facebook. I was sitting out in my garden and doing all that. And things, do you know how many years ago that's been?
Yeah, it's almost 6 years.
Almost 6 years. Okay. Yeah. I knew it had been a while. I still am on your email list. I still reach out from time to time to see how you are and check out your pages to see what's going on with you. But I'm so excited to be able to get together with you today and share this experience with all the viewers because your story is so inspirational. So I'll ask you again, for everybody's benefit, tell me a little bit about your life before your cancer diagnosis and tell me how the diagnosis came about. So
Sure.
It's all on you now.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm honored and to touch base with you again. And before my diagnosis, I was all over the place in terms of I'm a competitive person. I grew up playing tennis. That's how I actually ended up in the United States. I played NCAA tennis with a full scholarship.
And
I'm
where are you
originally
from?
from, I'm from Venezuela. I
Okay.
was born in Venezuela
Okay.
from a Greek and Spanish from Madrid parents. They migrated to Venezuela after World War II. And so I was born in Venezuela, and my dad was a tennis a star. He played Davis Cup, and so I followed him, and I ended up being a pretty good player, good enough to do my engineering degree for free in the United States,
Nice.
playing for the New Mexico State Aggies and NCAA. So that tells you a little bit of how I started. Getting sick with melanoma, because in Venezuela, my parents said that my sister and I learned how to swim before we learned how to walk. It was always in the sun and the beach in the 60s and 70s. And
And let's
but
face it,
before,
nobody used sunscreen back then.
right, no one.
None.
Actually, you were hoping to find ways to get a better
I
tan.
know. You know what? I'll share real quick. When I was a teenager, I would lay out in the sun with baby oil on me just to really get those rays coming in, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. So, but anyway, I started progressing in my career, and we were blessed with 5 children. We have 4 boys, well, 4 adults now, and a lady. The youngest is going to be 30, Claudia. And in the midst of all that, taking care of 5 kids, I was working on my MBA at the University of Miami in Coral Gables. And on top of that, taking the kids to camping out with them, just going out for camping trips, put them in sports, taking them all over the place, doing my MBA, trying to run marathons. And I think the good Lord at one point, and always had the sun. I'm an outside person. And so I think at one point, the good Lord said, "Hey, Georges, stop. This is not the way." And I had become, by the time I was sick, I was a CTO. I moved all the way up to becoming an executive in technology for a startup company. And but well, that's and right before a year and a half before I was diagnosed, my dear mother was diagnosed with cancer, lung cancer, but she was a smoker, and she was 17 years old. So in a way, she looked for it. And but the whole experience was very emotional. Us from the Mediterranean are very emotional people anyway, to start with. And I was very close to my mother, and just that experience created a lot of stress on me. They were in Venezuela. I was already here in the United States. I had to travel, like I told you before, monthly. And then as things were progressing, I was actually going weekly. And
And
that
so not
also
only is that a
created,
time, um, it is also a very financially draining place to be,
yes.
I would assume, because not many people would be able to afford to do these monthly, then weekly flights for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
How long were you able to stay? Or did you go and just stay a day and then come back? How did that work?
No, I would go like on a Monday and
Mm-hmm.
return on a Friday,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes Saturdays, or Monday to Monday. And yes, and even though both my wife and I were doing very well with our careers, 5 kids, it was a load. And so she passed in July of 2002, and I was diagnosed August 2002.
Mm.
And I couldn't even mourn my mother, because all of a sudden I got this news, and nobody wants to hear that they have cancer.
Mm-hmm.
We'll
The C
talk
word
about
is
it
a
in a
very
little.
bad word.
Yes. And plus, like I say in the book, people see cancer as like a bold letters and uppercase. This is it's really a dangerous thing. It's going to take your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so and we'll touch that. But that's how I got sick. I was diagnosed with malignant melanoma.
Where was
And
it at?
the first one was right on top of my scalp, and I have long hair. Like I said, I used to play tennis surf. I was a sun person.
Hmm.
And so they, yeah, I was lucky, by the way. I was at the pool with the kids, and you know, for a few days I was scratching my head, and it was a Sunday. I asked my wife if she could check it out because I was bleeding a little bit, and she looked at it, and because of the kids, she was taking them once a year. We, you know, Miami has a lot of sun there, once a year to the dermatologist. So she told me, Georges, this is doesn't look good.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna call tomorrow and see if you could see the doctor, kids doctor. She also saw adults, and so they told her that there was no. On Monday, they told her there was no openings until like 4 weeks, and so she said to the assistant, "Look, this doesn't look good. If you have an opening, please let us know." And it was amazing because on Tuesday afternoon she called and she had an opening Wednesday morning, and that was key because melanoma is very aggressive, and especially in those days. This was in 2002. There was no immune therapy, none of that. And so we went Monday, Wednesday morning, and she looked at me, and she had some resident students there. And once she saw my stuff, she says, "Would you mind that we bring the students here?" So I knew, oh man, this is not good. And it wasn't. The next day on Thursday, I was in my office. Like I say, I was already up in the ladder a little bit with technology, you know,
So were
with my
you feeling anything, but it was just on your scalp, right? And you couldn't
yeah,
really, it
I
didn't,
just
you didn't feel bad other than it was itching, correct?
it was itching. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's interesting that you say, because I read a book from a cancer survivor that she says, you're not, the day you're diagnosed, you're not sicker than 2 days before. It's just a mental thing that, oh my goodness, I'm diagnosed now. And if
Hmm.
you don't know how to deal with that, you know, you could just very quickly go down the
Oh
hill.
yeah, I've seen it with people that I've known. They get
Hmm.
diagnosed with cancer, and as soon as they do, all of a sudden they're seeming frail. They're
Hmm.
they're not feeling good, and they're
Yeah.
it's like the fear is just kind of washed all over them and just taken over.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so again, and in my family though, I grew up. I lost my maternal grandfather when I was 5, and I can remember perfectly the Greek grandfather from colon cancer. And then we
Mm,
lost I lost my godmother from colon cancer as well. And then an uncle, my godfather. We're Christian Catholics, and so forth. And it was like that when I looked at my family landscape, and I started to fear actually the disease. And
yeah.
we could talk about the power of the mind. Either way, when you really what you think and what you see is what you're gonna get. The mind works with the body to make it happen,
Yeah.
which by the end, at the end, actually helped me survive. And I'll tell you in a second. But so so I just, you know, it was a roller coaster. In the beginning, I couldn't believe it. My mother was just past 3 weeks ago. What are the kids gonna say? My kids were 15, 12. The twins, we have twin boys. They were 10, and Claudia was 7. And you know, I was also struggling with that. Do I tell him? Do I don't tell him? And I decided that I would, because I wanted to be open and have all the support I could have. I did that also with my colleagues, my friends, family, and that ended up being very powerful. If anybody that is listening now is a caregiver from a relative or are going through the disease, open up. Open
Hmm.
up with no, you know, remorse. Just open up and open your heart to get all this love that is ready to be given to you. You'll be
Yeah.
surprised.
Yeah.
Many
Love is
people.
much more healing than
Oh
smothering
yeah,
everything in. Yeah.
absolutely, Vickie. And so yeah, that's how the whole thing started. I had a surgery. That the first one was this, but they did a biopsy. It's called the sentinel biopsy, which is they put some chemicals uh, uh, solution that goes. They put it right up on my scalp, and they checked out radioactive. Of course, they checked out where it was draining more. Just In
Oh,
other words,
okay.
to say, well, we suspect that maybe it went to the left, to the right. So it went to my right, and also they did a biopsy by my ear, in the top of my ear, and it came positive. So they decided to do what they call a retraction of 23 lymph nodes. And there were 3 that they couldn't get to. So they decided to remove a muscle, a neck muscle. And it turned out that those 3 were positive. But so that was also, I was so grateful that these guys were aggressive, the surgeons. And then that was it. They put me on chemo, and 4 months later, it started manifesting on my left ear, and they did a biopsy, and it was positive. So they did another retraction of 22 lymph nodes, and 2 of them, they didn't have to remove any, thank God, any other muscles, but there were 2 positive. So one of the things that was amazing with me, obviously as an athlete, I played, as I said, I was always in very good shape. And I think that helped me a lot, even on the healing process. They put a catheter for me to drain lymphatic fluid, and I had no problem with that, no infections. So everything went well. They changed the chemo to another form of chemo. It was actually interferon. Mind you, medicine, it's really a trial and error science, still is. And so, without really happening on purpose, you become a guinea pig. They're just trying stuff. And so, I was like 6 months into that, and again it appeared, and so they had to remove
The third time, a third time, you mean?
that was on the third time.
Okay.
Actually, what happened is that didn't work, by the way, in terms of how I was feeling. So they had to do another removal on my scalp in the same spot. It happened again, and so that was the third surgery. I ended up having 10 surgeries in 10 years, fighting this battle. So anyway, I had that, and myself, I just started looking. In 2002, Google was it was growing, so there was good information already online, and I found out that there was a treatment that was more almost immune, okay, and it was all about making your immune system stronger, called CMGSF. And I had to actually, so the doctor said, because I had to promote, actually, and this is something that is very important. When we hire, remember, we hire the doctor that we like, and maybe it's like any other business. I like this doctor, I trust him. And so I went to him and said, look, have you heard of this? And so, yeah, they're just almost, they're just about to be FDA approved. And but I think I can put you in. Please, let's try that. So I went a whole year with CMGSF, injecting myself. I would have to do, I would shot myself with this medicine around. It was skin, under the skin, and so I had to do that for 15 days. So I would rotate from my stomach, and right by my thighs, 15 days, and I would rest 15 days, and I then again 15 days for a year. Each shot was $1,000, by the way. Thank God I had some, you were talking about finances. For us, it really became like a financial tsunami. It just hit us. I couldn't work for a good while. And so we decided to just drop down our lifestyle almost, just more than 50%, enough that we could still, take care of everything else. So after I finished that, and during this treatment, I was what they call in remission, and I was actually another year and a half after that in remission. And that's when one morning I started stuttering, getting headaches. My wife would I would go to brush my teeth, and I get that toothpaste, and all of a sudden I would leave the bathroom, and she would go and say, George, I forgot to brush it. It's like I was doing stuff that were not normal. And one day she heard me talking to a client. I was still in the technology side and consulting. The An executive from a client in Spanish, and he's completely Anglo. He from New Jersey. So Don was like, okay, George, and I. So that's when my wife said, something's
Something's up.
wrong. Yeah. What? Why? Well, you were talking to Don Smith in Spanish. He doesn't know a word in Spanish. And so, are you okay? And then I said, yeah, this was sporadic. The next morning, I felt good. I took my car. I went to a client. We had a meeting. My employees were there too, in Miami, downtown Miami. And we were there. We went to lunch. And all of a sudden, we started lunch, and I lost it. All of us, it was almost like a dream. And they were, hey, George, are you okay? And everybody has finished. I had all my food. I
So it
said,
was like
yeah,
you
I'm
just kind
okay.
of blacked out and you were just
I
there.
kind of blacked out. And
Okay.
so we went back. Okay, I didn't eat anything. And they made sure we crossed the street, and we were in downtown. I was in the middle. And then as we were going up the elevator, I lost my vision
Oh, wow.
momentaneously. I just lost it. I don't know how long. And I just hold things and grab one of the clients, and they held my hand and said,
Oh,
you
that had to
okay?
be
So
scary as hell.
yes, it was. And so it came back, and they said, is your wife in town? We need to contact her. I said, no, I'm fine. So they did. And actually, so my wife said, don't let him leave. Actually, ask him to give you the keys from the car. I'm going to take the metro rail, and I'm going to take him straight to the hospital. He's been already 2 weeks with a lot of stuff that they're not normal. So she came and picked me up. We left the car in the garage, and we went to see my oncologist, and I started answering stuff in Spanish again. They asked me who the president was at the moment. It was Bush, not senior, and I said Ronald Reagan.
Oh, gosh.
Who's the president right now? Is Ronald Reagan, and I remember clearly they're both seeing each other, and he said, "Well, you staying here. We're gonna do some tests," and that was it. I had my first craniotomy. It was in the front lobe, and he had it was almost like a small lime. It was pretty big by the time. I was just like I say, I was stuttering, and so that was my first craniotomy and my fourth surgery. And then I had three more craniotomies through the years. I mean, I would accept, because for us, what is the mind goes to what is familiar to us, and for all of us, what's familiar is to go see an oncologist, somebody that has a white coat, and give our power to them.
Mhm.
And we'll talk about that in a second. And so they said, George, after that, it was a successful. Thank God for the neurologists and the team that they had in the University of Miami. It's the Sylvester Cancer Center. I love those guys. And if it wasn't for them, you and I would not be talking. But what was not working for me was all this pharmaceutical stuff. It was just not working. They would do a surgery, thank God, then treatment, remission, surgery, treatment, remission. And on year 7 of this, after 3 craniotomies, and there were 2 tumors that were not operable, and they were sort of growing slowly, but they were growing in the back lobe. And and they gave me this chemo that supposedly was able to penetrate the brain. The brain is very, very, very tough barrier to go through. It's really protective. So I took that. It was supposed to be five capsules a week. Take five, just like the other one. Take five, rest five, take five. But on the second one, on my sixth, let's say capsule that I took, I decided no, this is gonna kill me. It was making me so antsy. I was just not sleeping. It was crazy. I don't know. It was not working. And so, as a person of faith, we started praying even more. And you know, I felt, if anybody is familiar with the Bible, I felt like Job in the Old Testament. You know, somebody that was, you know, a person that was a good Christian, good father, you know, a good employee. And I could not believe it. I said, why me? You blessed me with 5 kids. And now you give me this, you know, why? But with time, and we are year 7 now. So with a leap of faith, I just said, you know what, I'm going to cleanse myself. I'm going to go through detox. You and I are very familiar with that. And I went to a naturopath, and this guy explained me all about the balanced pH in our bodies. And he said to me, it's a holistic, he was a naturopath, but now they call themselves, especially doctors that went holistic, to oncologists, that they go holistic, and then now they call holistic doctors. But he explained me that all disease starts with a body that is inflamed. And we do the best job inflaming our bodies as humans, especially in the US. I have to tell you, I did a talk in May of this year. In March, I always do the research. 48.7% of the United States population has 1 or 2 chronic diseases: cancer, heart disease, diabetes, bulimia. I mean, you
Yeah, and
name
it
it.
goes up exponentially for ages. Yes.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's just really, it's really uh you wonder what's going on. And I know that part of it is diet, the stress that we live in. We're going fast all the time. And
But and
stuff
you
that
know, not to interrupt, I guess I am
no,
interrupting, but one of the
it's okay.
things to me is also it's expectation.
Hmm.
Most people feel like as you get older, because this is what the advertisements tell you and the media and everything tells you,
Yeah.
is that as you get older, these are the things that are going to happen to you. And so people expect those
Yes.
things to happen. So they're not doing anything to prevent it because they just think that's part of life.
Yes.
And I think the beauty of your story and some of the other stories that I've heard is that, you know, you can decide no matter what's going on with you today, you can decide that you're not going to put up with it anymore and you're going to do something different. And if you really focus and you get help and you do it, then you can make an astronomical difference. Is like the epigenetics thing, you know, just
Exactly.
because you've got this gene in your body like your family does, doesn't mean anything's going to happen.
Doesn't
It
mean
can lay
nothing.
dormant till you know, till you're 110 years old. It's what
Yes.
you do in your life that actually pulls the trigger that makes it become part of your body, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
sorry, I
Yes.
didn't mean to interrupt, but it
No,
was
but
like
that
that's
was
one of my little
good.
soapbox things.
Yeah, no, and that's good. I mean, that we're doing this for the audience. And
Yes.
so yeah, I decided to go natural. And this guy explained everything about the balanced pH. And he said, Georges, if anybody has a pH balance at 7, disease cannot even appear. And if the way that you are now, if you start working on that, we're going to detox you first. But if you keep it that way, the cancer will eventually go. Just naturally. I mean, we're talking the physical body, but there's additional stuff. You mentioned a little bit of this. So I decided to do that. I went through 2 21-day cleanses with him.
So
The
what kind of
first
cleanses did you do
we did it similar to what we did. He put
with
me actually
HCI?
because
Okay.
I was so thin that he said, "You eat eggs." I said, "Well, I eat egg whites and don't don't stop that. But everything else is going to be plant-based. We're going to have a lot of juicing. I'm going to give you some pre and probiotics, and for 21 days. The day that I saw him, he did a scan, non-invasive. As a matter of fact, it wasn't even FDA approved. He got it from Switzerland, I believe, or Germany. And but he said, you know what, I have to do this because people can. And actually, this software, it was almost like biofeedback. He put some cables and in my head, and I could see in the screen and in the software my body. My body was almost like a festival, 4th of July. It was yellow all over the place. My liver, my stomach, and that was the inflammation I had in the body. And from the chemo, from being stressful and stressed with my mother's situation, my career, I wanted to basically manage everything. And as one of my colleagues said, and I actually quote him in my book, Chris Work, another cancer survivor, and he's doing the same thing I do, and doing coaching like you in different areas. He says that for him, cancer is a divine touch in the shoulder, in your shoulder. And that touch has a message. And that message is, Georges, you must change your lifestyle because you're killing yourself. That is really what it's all about. And now with epigenetics, and I'll show you what stuff that I'm working on. It's so I realized that I had no coaches, but I did that actually meeting with the doctor. I decided that really made me the push to say, you know what, I'm going natural. And then I had, for a couple of days, almost a week, I had friends. My wife is in the medical field as an ultrasound tech and radiology tech. I have doctors in my family, and so they were against it. No, you're crazy. Don't stop. Let's stop chemo. Again, do what is familiar. All of us are familiarized with that. And you just mentioned something now that I'll tell you what I do with coaching my clients on this. But anyway, the whole thing was, wow, this makes sense. So I went on. I took this journey. 21 days later, I came and we did the second scan, and it was night and day. I mean, it was just almost. I mean, there was only a couple of spots, and he said, "Well, now we're gonna do another 21 days. You can."
So how much time did you have between the two cleanses?
A week.
A week. Okay.
A week. But he said, stay, I didn't even, he said, keep it up. The same thing is not as strenuous. The first week, Vickie, he actually even asked me to buy some pads like diapers, but they're for your feet. And the first 3-4 days of my detox, when I woke up in the morning and I opened this diapers, let's say, these pads, it was like, wow, they were basically black. And it so happens that our immune system, it flushes up through our feet and stuff goes out. I was impressed. I was like, oh my gosh. And so, but by the end of the week, it was clear. That was, it was motivating me. And I thought, hey, wait a minute, I think I have an alternative here. I don't want to keep leaving surgery, treatment, recurrent surgery. I was already on 8 surgeries by that time. And so it was close to 8 years. And they were at the end of the most were in my brain. I had 4 craniotomies and 2 gamma knives, and there were still 2 tumors that they just have to check because they're not operable, and the gamma knife kind of stopped them, but they were there. And it's not fun to know that you have something there. Now many people are walking around and they don't know what's going on until it happens. And it could be anything, a heart attack or whatever. But then I talked to my oncologist. I was so blessed, and I say in the book that you read, these guys were all angels. His name, and he told me that I could mention it, is Lynn Fun, the oncologist. And I said, Dr. Font, I decided that I'm going to stop my treatments and I'm going to, and he goes, are you sure, Georges? And he didn't, because I have heard now that I'm doing this for 6 years, closing to 100 clients. You know, our programs, I do the 90-day program. And I've done stuff with nutrition, and now with the RTT, I'm going to do a little bit of hypnosis. And you, I know that you're a hypnotherapist.
Mm-hmm.
After this podcast, we can talk about that. I have some questions for you. But
Okay.
the bottom line is that I said, and he, are you sure? And in many cases, and I have clients, recent clients, two in California, the doctor said, well, if you decide to do that, you're on your own.
Yeah. I won't
Oh,
touch you anymore.
yeah.
I've heard
Can
people
you
tell me
believe
that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I said, but I would appreciate, Dr. Fan, if you can continue to do my checkups, my blood tests, my scans. And he said, sure. And if you ever, you know, if we see that, you know, you need to get back to it. So he was very, very accommodating to me. And again, I thought at that moment, in those days, I decided to change. My mindset was not why, but what for?
Yeah.
Life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And I started to say, well, there might be a reason here. And I kept saying from the very first day, this can't be. You've blessed me with 5 kids, like Job, but it was on God's time, and that's the way I see it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kept going, and little by little, you know, the doctor started from 3 months to 6 months to 1 year, and in year 12 to year 10, after I had my last craniotomy next to where I talk, and so they were gonna do that like at the dentist, local anesthesia for a while, so they could see, I mean, to make some tests. If it was not affecting my speech, it would put me to sleep and keep going with total anesthesia. But what happened then, and this is worth saying, because like I say, I'm a person of faith. I was invited to go. This is because I opened myself. People knew that, my employees, even colleagues and clients, family and friends specifically. And somebody invited me to a prayer group in this church, St. Louis Church. You know, and she said that she had a dream of me and his brother, but his brother couldn't go. I said, well, Daniela, I'll go if you invited me. She was actually embarrassed to ask me. You know, people have this some sort of a fear to say, hey, I don't want to. It's, you know, we got to change that mindset. Well, anyway, I went, and you know, I prayed with them. They gave me this is in the book. They and then the lady that has this amazing talent, like Jesus mentioned, you know, he had the talent of imposition of hands. She just came back from from Central America, Guatemala. She was doing what they call healing masses with a priest and a couple of nuns too, but she's a lay person. And her name was Mary of the Angels. Imagine,
Oh,
that's her
wow.
name.
Yeah.
That's a great, an amazing thing. I mean, Mary, the mother of God, you know. Anyway, she was sick. She got the cold in Guatemala. So she went, but she was in the chapel. She said, well, I'm going to pray for everyone. And, some Danny has said that I was going, but she goes, well, look, I'm going to be there. I don't want to get anybody sick. But she was there, and when they were praying, I was in the front pew, and they were singing and praising, and she comes out of the chapel that was attached to the main church, the main, you know, and she says, "Where's George? I need to pray for him." And so Danny said, "Look, the guy there in front." And so she came. I didn't see her. She came from the back, and she grabbed my shoulder and says, "Hey, George, come come back. Let's go back. I want to pray for you." So she started praying for me. She actually, for some way, she actually went and to my head instead of my shoulders or anything. And I started praying. She's for people that are familiar with uh, Christianity. She started to speak in tongues. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh my goodness, what's happening? But all of a sudden, Vickie, I started to kind of like cry this warm tears, and I would feel this warm flow all around my body. And so she kept going, and then all of a sudden she stops, and she's holding my shoulder, and she goes, "You you're going through something big this week, right?" And that was gonna be the surgery where they had to do it on awake.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told her, and she says, "Come, let me just pray for you a little more." And she started again, and I even felt stronger, this flow in my body. And I was just feeling that I was healing. That was from the spiritual side, and I'll tell you a second. So what happened is she finishes and she goes, "George," she would not, well, actually, she was saying my name in Spanish, Jorge.
Mm-hmm.
If I am not sure that you should even go Thursday to do and this was a Tuesday night, your surgery. And because I don't ask, hey, please, Lord, just help George. No, he is the king of the kings. So, he's got 5 kids. Just heal this guy. And with a lot of strength. So I go forward. They finish the praising, and Daniela didn't know. She had this dream, but she didn't know. We decided it was like surgery 9, surgery 8, and why telling the friends and family? Yeah, we'll just tell the kids, and that's it. And so, but she mentioned, and Daniela was there, and she went, "Oh my God, maybe that was a dream." Whatever, but she actually had asked everybody to pray for me. So again, and here it is. I went Wednesday. The next morning, I had to go to the hospital to get my all the stuff that they had to do so they could know where they would do it was an MRI.
Mm-hmm.
So they do the MRI, and um, so I go home, and so I said, and Naomi asked me when we went. My wife asked me, "So what are you going to do?" That's Tuesday night. So I wake up in the morning and say, "Well, I'll pray on it. I'll sleep on it." And she said, "What are you going to do? We have to, if you," and I said, "No, I'm going to go. I'm going to go, anyway." And that's let's, if they can take this stuff out. But what happened is we get there on Thursday morning, pre-op, and the doctor comes in, the neurologist comes in with a smile. And she goes, "Mr. Cordoba, I have 2 pieces of good news for you." And my wife and I looked at each other, and we thought, oh my goodness. He says, number one is we had a conference with the other major clinics and stuff, Houston, Minnesota, and we all concluded that we can actually do the surgery with total anesthesia. And I thought, oh, this is great. And I said, what's the second one? And he said, well, look, all I have to say now is that the tumors that were not operable, they're not there. They're gone. And my wife started crying, and I just said, wow. I said, well, it's okay. We're going to do the post-surgery to see how the surgery went, and we double check. Sometimes there may be an error in the scan. So they went through the surgery, and again, very, successful. I do have some scars in my head. It's okay. And so again, the surgery went well. And at the end of the day, I said, oh, and the other tumors, they are gone. And
Wow.
then in another 3 months they were gone. So that was one part of stuff. We talked about the inflammation in the body. What happens for us that the disease doesn't start in the body, starts it manifests in the body. But there's, as a nutritionist, I learned the communication between the brain through the vagus nerve and the gut. And the gut is very, very, very wise, by the way. And what happens is you could be eating the best plate, what you think the most, let's say, the healthiest plate, but only 25% of our digestion is what we eat. 75% is who we are when we eat.
Yep.
So, and the nervous system notice that through the vagus nerves. And if we are stressed, in a hurry, or it's almost like if you are in a camp, you're doing a picnic with you're eating your lunch in the picnic, and you see this mountain lion coming to you. You have two choices: either fight the lion or flight. Get out of here. And you and I
Give it
know
your
about
lunch
it.
so it won't follow you.
Yeah, you leave it on whatever you were eating, and we learned this in the
Yeah.
Health Coaches Institute. Whatever we're eating, it gets shot. There's no digestion because everything is in the mind is, adrenaline, sir, and it's just, blood to the legs, to the muscles so you can fly.
Yeah.
So, but the interesting thing is that this sympathetic part of the system, which is our fight and flight, that doesn't know if it was a mountain lion or if you had an argument with somebody at work or you're frustrated in traffic, doesn't know. So there are tricks to actually, there are tips to do some tricks to actually kind of like fake that you are okay. And one of them, we do it very, very seldom, is breathing before we eat. The other thing is that we eat too fast. We chew too fast. Look at the statistics we have, and almost half of the nation is sick. So why? And so this is really what I do. I teach people how to do that. And on the mental side, because I was an athlete and play competition, I was in a national team in my country. Then I played here. I was in the top 50 in doubles. And I mean, it was, and played plenty tournaments. I tried to play pro. It was visualization, mental rehearsing, actually seeing myself winning the match, seeing myself very concentrated, not worrying about the crowd or what they said, just the focus of doing that. And guess what? What you tell them, the mind, like I told you before, what you say, what you visualize, what you think, if they're in conjunction, the body, the mind says, hey, it must be done this way. So I started to do some prayers, in imagining the Holy Spirit coming in through my head and cleaning me up. And then for those that are a little older, the Pac-Man, remember the Pac-Man game?
Yeah.
The little creature, I would see that creature going around and just eating all the tumors that I could maybe have in my body. And so that helped a lot. That helped a lot. And another thing that, and that I teach that now, another thing that really helped me, and I think this is where even melanoma now, we're learning about epigenetics and stuff, which is wonderful. We can actually, with our mind, and we can change things. We can actually change, like you explained it perfectly. But just like that, one of the things that get us sick is the area of having trouble or bad experiences with somebody. In other words, forgiveness, forgiving somebody, being forgiven, and also forgiving ourselves. If we don't do that, we think, that stuff is there, which is in our subconscious mind. Then you hear a song, I don't know, you watch a movie, and it triggers that again. And guess what happens? It produces cortisol, which is really what it makes us inflame. Cortisol for certain situations like the fight and flight is good, but if you're producing constantly this and you're eating fast and your metabolism, your digestion doesn't go correct, it's almost like a cycle that the end result is you're going to have some sort of illness.
Right.
And so my coaching is the physical body, the mental body, the spiritual body, and the emotional body. I use the metaphor of a table. if you're missing one of those, or if it's really weak, you can hardly eat in there. And for me, and I'm sure for you too, Vickie, this is not work. I'm an advocate now to let people know that, and I work on that with transformational coaching. When you did the holistic MBA too, it's about making the client, the person, family, start becoming familiar to other things, other alternatives, and the mind listens. The mind doesn't know if you're saying something that is true or false. It just acts. So if it does, if it's like that, say positive things and start looking at and this is with exercising, and it's working. I've had some great experiences with clients. Two of them decided, like me, to stop traditional treatments, and there they are. One of them was she's there. I don't completely agree, but she didn't even want to have surgery with breast cancer. But like, again, if we learn, and now with you might be familiar with this. I'm doing rapid transformational therapy with Marisa Peers in London. We do some stuff after you do the induction, and hypnosis. I was actually pretty not comfortable with that. I had some myths, and it's really what it is really being in a state of relaxation with our nervous, because you'll be practicing for a while, and it's so powerful. I ask permission because as we go through the process, I have a couple months left, but we cannot. They say, you can go up to here, and you can do this, and I mean, I just know if the person becomes familiar with other stuff, the fear of making changes starts going away, even with oncologists. I was in a summit with two of them, a lady and a gentleman, that doctors that went through cancer, and they did what they knew, and they know the different chemos.
Well, there's a book that I read, Killing Cancer, Not People. Have you read that book? Okay.
Yeah, not, but I heard, yes.
You said you have not, or you have?
No, I haven't, but I've heard of it.
It's a great book. One of the things that was really eye-opening to me was, and not to say that I'm not telling people what to do, as far as if your doctor tells you to do something, I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying you have to be your own advocate. Read the book, see what you think. And it's Killing Cancer, Not People. And I got it on my, let's see who it is. Robert G. Wright. So anyway, in the book, he talks a lot about the treatments that people are under. And I know that I've read and saw so many things. So a lot of the medical industry does this stuff about early detection. And that's why they do a lot of the different testing and stuff that they do. But according to the book, and it's been a lot of the things that I've read say the same thing, that if you had the early detection and they saw something, they put you on treatments, your life expectancy is the same if you hadn't gotten the early detection. It just means that you got to be in the medical realm, paying them money, going through treatments, and your life was still the same length regardless. It's just that part of that life you felt like shit because you were under all these treatments.
Yes.
It's and a lot of the treatments that people are put in create other things, and sometimes those are the things that kill them, not the cancer. So it's mind-boggling. But like you said, we are programmed from very young. They've got on white coats, they've got a degree, they're God, they know more than me. I can't question them. And I will say, I had a client that questioned her doctor. All she did was say, like you had said, there's these treatments I've seen, and I would like for us to just talk about these treatments. And the doctor just got all pissed off at her. How dare you try to tell me what to do, because I have this degree, I do this, I know this, you know nothing. And she said that when he first started saying this, it was like she cowed down and she said, okay, okay, okay. And she talked to me afterwards and I said, well, wait a minute. I said, doesn't he work for you? Isn't he supposed to be taking care of you? I said, you have a right to ask questions. You have a right to say, I'm not so sure that that's for me. Let's talk about it a little bit more. I said,
Yeah.
don't just take what he says at face value and say, okay, because ultimately, if it affects you in a negative way, he doesn't pay the price for it. You do. So she did decide to go back and question a few more things. And finally, she and I talked about ways to maybe present it to him that maybe wouldn't be so triggering for him. And she did that. And she was able to, she still went and did some of the treatments, but they went in together and decided what treatments to do. But it was like, mind boggling to me how quickly we, bow down to
Exactly.
they're the authority,
Right. Yeah, we lose our power. We have our best coach is our intuition, but we actually give it away. This power, we give it away even maybe when we're 10 years old. Oh, no, no, don't listen to it. Listen to the teacher, the preacher. Listen to your uncle, your dad, your grandfather. But we do have that power. That's another thing that is very important to mention is, well, I'm not going to go there, but one thing that is very important, one thing that is very important with the mind. I was always a competitor, so I wanted to know. I really wanted to know inside out what melanoma, which was really melanoma and pancreas are the most aggressive cancers, and basically, I asked this doctor that is a friend of the family. We grew up together. Another tennis player. I said, "Why don't you come home before the kids get here, and get into the New England School of Medicine, and read about what my opponent is once the Mets went to the brain." So he came. And so, I had my laptop ready. He went in, he started looking at some articles and reading. And him also being from the Mediterranean, Italian descendant, he's 6'4". He started dropping a few tears. And I go, what's going on? Let me read it. And so I read it and what is said. And at that time, another person also was diagnosed in the brain, a politician, Senator Kennedy, and he lasted 6 months. He didn't make it. And so I started, by the way, having some survival's guilt because, I kept thinking, wow. Anyway, for my situation, it was 4% chance of survival.
Wow.
And and Stefano, his name is Stephen, he got up and I got up because I sat down and I said, Stefano, I want you to answer one question for me. Why can't I be one of those four? Why can't I be one of those four? Statistics, 5-year, no, why can't? And so he actually gave me a hug and said, well, you see, George, it is, and he calls me Jorge, because we grew up in Spanish, but he did say, that's why you
Will be one of the four.
If I was you, I'd probably die of fear, of anxiety. That's why, God knows who to give the challenge to. So we laughed about it. And actually in my second, we'll talk about the book when you want to, but in the little edition I did, it's just one of the things was that I added more credits. And he was one. I asked him, and he said that he proved all of them wrong, all the doctors wrong. And he told me, and he said, George, Jorge, go and talk to Dr. Fun and thank him. And actually for Dr. Fun, and listen to this, you are a trophy. You are a trophy. He's going to showcase you. Obviously, because they want to say, look, we helped Georges survive. And But on year 8, like I say, almost 8 years, and he agreed. And then 4 years after my treatments and stuff, we stopped, and I stopped going to scans and stuff. I knew I was healed. I don't like the word remission. I'm healed. I'm
Yeah,
done.
yeah. You
And
either
like you
are or you're
mentioned,
not, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
To me, remission feels like, well, it's in my back pocket
It's
trying to
it's your
get out.
psychology. It's your
Yeah.
psychology, and many people here. Well, it's good to us. The doctor is like I say, he's your employee. So I do have a questionnaire that actually it was made by Chris Work, and I asked him if I could use it. He said, of course. But not many people use it. That tells you the psychology of things. Take this questionnaire, print it out, and go and ask your oncology doctor. How many people with this treatment, how many people are already 5 years later with it, living 5 years later or 10 years later,
And
you
in
know?
what condition are they living?
And in
That's
what
another
condition
thing.
are
What
they?
is their
Yeah,
quality of life after this?
exactly. Exactly. That's one. The other one is, doctor, is it, and I have to say it, but it's okay. I was
Mhm.
scared before this doctor about this. Is it true that you get the chemos at wholesale and you guys charge the client with a profit? But who has the strength to ask that? But
Yeah.
it's true.
And it's
Oh,
because they don't want to, like the lady I was telling you about, the one of the reasons why she cowed down was because she said he was her doctor. She didn't want to make him mad,
yeah.
you
And
know?
you, yeah, and mind you, these guys are doing what they learn, and they are really trying to help you heal.
Hmm.
We are the ones that think they're God, and we just lose our power.
Yeah.
Another thing that is important for people that are going to any chronic disease, I work with cancer. That's what I help folks that are, actually sometimes a caregiver wants to do the coaching to prevent it, because it's pretty much the common denominator is stress, stuff, this eating fast. But one thing that is very important with any disease is your attitude. Don't assume that I'm a patient attitude. I'm gonna go home and just wait for the next doctor's appointment and see what he
Hmm.
says, what the results. If you do that, it's like in any philosophy, but I say it as a Christian, it's like faith without action.
Right.
And faith without action is said in our faith for Christians is dead, as James says.
Yeah.
Don't, he says, be careful, do not deceive yourself. Show me your faith with action. So, but if you see it as yourself, take action. God is not going to give you a magic wand. Take action, look around, be confident. Faith
Hmm.
is the certainty of what you want. So that's what I did. And I learned a lot about this stuff too with another competitor, way more successful than me, Lance Armstrong, the
Hmm.
cyclist. Regardless
Yeah.
of what happens to him afterwards. But he did have cancer, and he took ownership of that. He
Yeah.
didn't give the power to
He still
anybody.
competed big time and did
Yeah,
great. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But what he said, and I remember this: do not give the power to the doctor. You have the power. You are the
Yeah.
guy that has to, or the
Yeah.
lady.
And the thing too, to me, is don't take ownership of the diagnosis, because
Exactly.
a lot of people, as soon as they hear that, suddenly all the downloads of all the people that have had cancer and all the things that they've heard about cancer, they just internalize it. And
Mhm.
it's funny to me, funny is not the right word, but people, I've had people say, well, I don't manifest anything, I try and I try, and I say, oh, no, you're manifesting all the time.
You
You're
are.
just not doing it on purpose. And so everything you got, you've manifested. So it's like taking
Mhm.
that whole thing of the cancer diagnosis and everything, putting it into a
Yeah,
little ball and saying, hey, I don't have to adopt
exactly.
all of the attitudes and everything that people have about cancer.
Yes. That is a great tip. And what you said is a great tip. Don't own it.
Mm-hmm.
If again, it's like the mind. I teach my clients to talk in the present sense. I
Yes.
will be, because if you say I would be cured, let's say in 9 months, you are accepting mentally that you're not cured yet. You have to talk, I'm cured. It's like you want to get a promotion in a job. You have to act like you are already in that position. This is the same thing. I am cured. I'm thankful for
Hmm.
my health and stuff like that. So, and you know what happens is in the beginning, your ego is saying, "Ah, come on, you don't believe that," because
Yeah.
we are familiar with the other stuff. No, come on. And so I tell them, practice is everything. The mind learns by practice, repetition.
Yes. Yes.
So it comes to a point that you start feeling this. The mind is actually working on that. If you are certain of that, I tell them, I guarantee you, whether you stop your traditional stuff or not, that sooner or later the doctors are going to say, I don't know what's happening. We're going to reduce but whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
Right.
And the best thing is oncologists doing and sharing their testimony, because they realize that, you know, there are other alternatives. I tell my clients, look, if you're going to continue with this stuff, that's okay, but this is going to maintain your immune system stronger, and it's going to help this other stuff. And speaking of the mind, if you receive whatever treatment you're receiving and you go home and you're waiting for the side effect, you're doing it the wrong way.
That's right.
Start from the moment that you're receiving it, close your eyes and say, talk to your cancer cells and say, hey, take this. And you
Hmm.
good cells, stay strong, because you know that chemo hurts both. And the mind does it. And you have to really be certain and be coached, because
Right.
we need help on this stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that HCI says that I tell all of my clients is small hinges swing big doors. It's the little things
Yes.
that we
Oh, yeah.
do all the time. And I just did a live on Instagram just the other day, and it's about keeping our word to ourselves, because when
Mm,
we are constantly telling ourselves we're going to do something and then we don't do it, our subconscious is learning, hey, she's not good,
mm,
don't even listen to her, and so it's little baby steps of teaching our subconscious that what you say you mean. And then when something like this happens and you start saying my cells are healthy, I feel good and everything, it's going to believe you, and
it
it's
does.
going to help you make that
Mhm.
true. Because what a lot of people do is, like, if they decide they're going to go on a diet, and then they're going to start getting healthy, they say, I'm going to never eat sugar again. I'm not going
Yeah.
to do this ever again. And I'm going to work out 5 times a week. Well, then when they don't do it, that's just one more little thing that has
Mhm.
solidified that, they'll listen to her.
Mhm.
So to me, that has been very powerful in my life. You know, I've never had a cancer diagnosis, but even other things that I
Mhm.
have attempted to do, I can tell a difference
Yeah.
if I've been keeping my word to myself and when I haven't. It's very powerful.
Yeah. It's and you just said something that is right now great conversation. You
Hmm.
to creating some stuff that brings me up to, certain things uh about ownership and things. Right now, the true pandemic in the world is cancer. One of two women are going to have an experience, one of two with
Hmm.
cancer, and one of three men. And the reason, especially in the US, the question is why? How can we prevent that? And that's my advocacy. And but the whole point is, how can I prevent it? And it takes a lot, it's going to take a lot of discipline to kind of like step out of this, let's say, electric escalator of society, the mainstream, the media giving you all these messages that are not right. They're not just, they're completely not good for you. So learning to step out of this electric escalator and take the steps and take a pit stop and say, what do I need to do? What is really what is going to help me? What kind of fuel I put to my Ferrari? We have a much better design than a Ferrari. If you do Formula One, you're not going to put the wrong gas to a Ferrari. Let's start by giving ourselves, the right nutrients. It doesn't have to be plant-based anyway, by the way. I can tell you, you need to, if you are going to do that, you need to do it like I did, maybe 2 months, 3 months, and then balance your diet. And what I teach my clients, I give them a chart, and I created an ebook for the balanced pH based on what I learned, and I read other books, and I give it away. I'm going to send you one, and
Okay.
I give them a table where it shows the nutrients that are, the foods that are acidic and the foods that are alkaline. And the trick here is to combine them. If you're gonna
Right.
have a red meat for lunch, have it with asparagus and with a salad, which is extremely alkaline. The
Right.
red meat it's a little acidic, so you balance your plate. So part of what I do now in my protocol is teach my clients how to create balanced pH plates, meals, and so there is a trick in there. That's something that nobody taught us this, and it seems to me that there is an agenda,
Yeah, I
a
agree.
sick agenda to make
Yeah.
it.
Well,
There's
let's face it. If cancer was cured tomorrow, the
yeah,
amount of people that would be out of business and all these big corporations and foundations and everything, would have nothing.
yes,
So it's a very economical
yes,
thing in our country to have it
hmm
fed, you
yes,
know? Yeah.
absolutely.
And
So
and if I can share real quick,
yes,
I had a client that actually we were talking about coaching, and she was really interested in coaching, and she had been diagnosed with breast cancer. And when she found it, it was stage 4. So it was, pretty advanced. And so I talked to her a little bit, and I even had some of the litmus papers, and I did her alkaline acidic test, and she was very acidic. I mean, very acidic. So I talked to her about, I said, just for now, I said, you've really got to eliminate the sugar. You've got to, and I gave her a list of things that were more alkaline foods and the things that were creating some of this stress in her body. And I said, right now, you're going to have to be more aggressive with this than you would have, 6 months or a year ago. But
hmm
now, these are the things you've got to do. And she was all gung ho for it for about a week. And then it was like her support system that she had poo-pooed it. It was like, well, that
hmm
doesn't make any sense. Here, I've got some candy. Here, let's eat some candy. Let's do this. Let's go get a pizza. It was like they didn't believe it.
hmm
And so she was like, well, I really feel like I need to be with my support system. And she's deceased now. She died with breast cancer. Wonderful, wonderful woman. But and I don't know if she had done this, if she would have still be alive today. I have no way of knowing. I just know that the best chance she had at that moment was to take some aggressive steps to see if she could get that to start moving out of her body, start getting not as aggressive. I mean, and in my opinion, the way I look at things sometimes is if you can stop it where it's at and it doesn't get worse, it's
hmm
a bonus, And what
absolutely.
if you could get it to, get a little bit less and a little bit less and a little bit less? But that was a very heartbreaking time for me because I felt like
Yeah.
she had all of these things that she could have done to try to make things improve, but
hmm
because none of her support system would back her on that, they kind of made her feel, and I hope none of them see this because they're going to be upset with me, but but
Plus,
if they had made it where they felt like, I guess what I'm saying is if you are dealing with somebody that has cancer and they make a decision that they want to try something or do something different, back them up and say,
yes,
hey, I'm with you. I'll help you. What do
mhm,
you need me to do? Because
exactly.
you don't know, that might be the one thing that prolongs their life exponentially.
Mhm.
And so that was my real reason for saying that, because, you know, a lot of people, if it's not something they're accustomed to, they won't
Yes.
support the
They will
person
support
in
you.
those.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So it's really
Yeah.
important. Like, you
We-
had family and friends and, and all that supported you when you made that decision.
Yeah.
And that was what made a huge difference in you being able to go through that and survive.
Yeah, and still being human beings and program the other way, I had to pray and kind of like put protect myself before I would leave the house, because people would say, "Hey, Georges, how are you? You know, how you been doing? Have faith, So that is really bad energy.
Yeah.
They're actually taking your fears into you. So I would have to protect myself. I would say, "Hey, I'm great. How are you?"
Yeah.
And they would be surprised of my attitude, because, like I say, it takes strength to
Yeah.
not get self-sabotage, or especially sabotage by friends, which is what you described a second ago. It's almost like they just don't understand it, or it doesn't have to be cancer. Anything, like you're in a diet and you're doing great. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Or you
One
yourself.
one piece of cake won't hurt.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
so go ahead and if you've got something you want to add right now, go ahead and add that. But if not, go ahead and show us your book. I'll show my copy, because I've got an old timey
The
copy.
original. You got
I've
the
got the
original.
original copy right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. And I have to look, what is it here? Let me see, because I have a background, but they might see it. Can you see it?
Yes, I can see it. Good.
Okay.
Yes.
The new title is Beating the Odds, and the subtitle is My Journey Through Holistic Health to Overcome Advanced Cancer. When I was giving a talk in Phoenix, and there was a publisher there from Arizona, from Phoenix, and he bought the book. And 2 weeks later, I received a call from him. I have my information in the book, saying that he was surprised. He had a lot of potential, helped a lot of people. If but two things he said: you get to change the title, add an introduction, a couple things, more critics, and change the cover. So I did that, and I launched it, self-published, and it became bestseller the first day.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, it was
Congratulations.
January 26, 1921. And then I launched it in Spanish.
2021. 2021.
2021, I'm sorry. And
You're
then
not that old.
no, no, thank you. Yeah, no, I am, but I take care of myself. Epigenetics. No. But and then in April I launched it in Spanish. It's my first language, and it became also a bestseller
Oh,
in
how
one day.
exciting.
That almost made a midnight almost. It was 11 some. I received an email by Amazon say, "Hey, congratulations." What I want to say is that with the book, last year, without promoting it, without promote the book, the Spanish book sold 1,500 books. People are looking for it. I mean, we live in the United States, but the English one sold a little over 3,000 books without promotion. It's just people referrals, or somebody's reading it on an airplane and stuff like that. And
I
it's
will be
just
putting a link to your book so people can,
okay.
is it on Kindle as well?
Yeah, thank you. They can get it on Kindle. They can get
Okay.
it paperback, and then probably in August, late August, it will be the audiobook as well.
Oh, wonderful.
So
So what I'll do is I'll be putting the links that you have. And then when that comes out, I can
Yeah.
go back to this and add that in so that people that see this later than that will actually have that link in there too.
Awesome. The
Yeah.
other thing, as you and I do, we'll have the information. They can go to my website and schedule a content discovery session completely free. So we can get, the person can meet me. We could talk a little bit. They're going to learn a lot of stuff, like probably they learned today, whether we work together or not. And finally, because this disease hits everyone. It's not, doesn't have any prejudice. Anyone, rich, poor, whatever ethnic group you are. I decided to do my coaching also via an online course. It's not 3 months. It's a little shorter. Well, it could be longer because you go at your pace. But the idea is coming up either this week, I'm going to launch it, or next week. Is being audited now by
Mm-hmm.
the host company to make sure that there's nothing, foul language or whatever. And then once it's live, people that purchase the course will be able to talk to me once a week in a QA session, live session,
Mm-hmm.
obviously at 2 o'clock Mountain Time. And that's going to help because the price is very, it's affordable. Because I found through my 6 years almost now coaching, it'll be 6 in October, that many people can afford it, especially if they're having all this bills, medical bills
Mm-hmm.
already.
Yeah, because the
it's a financial
weight is
situation. Yeah.
huge, especially if
Exactly.
they don't have like a lot of the treatments. It sounded like a lot of the treatments that you had were not covered by insurance.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
the GNCSF was not.
yeah.
We had to. If you get you read the book, but for us it was a financial tsunami. We had to lower obviously our lifestyle. We have to tapping into our 401ks, the stuff that we have saved for the kids to go to college. It was, and that really also adds to the stress and on all the
Mm-hmm.
stuff that you don't need to have.
Right.
One thing that I want to leave everybody with is healing, my friends, cannot happen at all if you are even a little bit stressed. Healing happens where you're relaxed, where you are in peace, and there are ways to do that. Society, almost this noisy society, it seems impossible, but it can be done. You have the time. You have the time. Nobody's putting a gun in your brain that in your head for you to go all right, it's 8 o'clock, I'm out and I have to do all these things. Do your things for yourself first, even if it's 10 minutes. Practice, then you do it 20 minutes. You start getting the hang of it and you doing yourself. Every time you do that, you're adding time in your life. And remember this, we all want to go to heaven, but not today. If we
Right.
have a purpose in our lives, let's take care of this Ferrari. We have a machine that we can actually, the 4 legs of the table, work on that stuff. It's not hard. The spirituality doesn't have to be religion. It could be the mountain that you see behind it could be the ocean. It could be a beautiful tree. It could be a friend that you see, and it just embrace with them. So that's spirituality. And obviously, if you have faith that there's something bigger than us, tap into it and take action with that. What you said about people asking and not receiving, I have a chapter in the book about that. What we ask for is given to us if it's not going to be harmful for us. We are the ones to block what we ask for. You know why? Because we don't feel worth receiving. We just have something. How many times a day or a year do we compliment ourselves? Go, no. We do that, they're gonna think we're narcissists. No, compliment yourself. Compliment, give yourself, a tap in the back when you reach a goal, when you do something good. We don't, again, it's practice, it's a mindset where we are not familiar to doing that. Hey, Vickie, you did great this week. You helped so many people. And the more you're thankful about something, about your health, the more you get up. It's a universal law. I don't care if you're Hindu, just Hebrew, Buddhist, Christian, whatever. It's a universal law. And when you are open to receive, and somebody from the heart, no agenda, is willing to give you, that's where miracles happen. Look at Jesus. Even if you're not a Christian, follow him, read his miracles, and you'll see what he said all the time. He said, whatever, let's say he said, brother, sister, your faith has
Mm-hmm.
healed you. I didn't heal. I'm
Yes.
not that like that. Your faith has healed you. You were open to receive. You came and asked me, and I gave you. And that's where the miracle happens. But what happens to us humans, most of us, we have a harder time receiving. It's easier to give. But when you allow people to love you, receive somebody, that's how miracles happen. That's pretty much what I wanted to share at the end.
Yes, perfect, perfect. That's wonderful, wonderful advice. And breaking it down into little bite-sized pieces so people can grasp it a little bit. And for me, I am so excited that I was able to have this conversation
Me
with you
too.
again. I think it went a little farther than it did last time, but I am so excited, and I want to get your newest edition of your book and read that as well. But for anybody that is watching this or listening, I will have all of George's information in the comments and the description, wherever you are watching or listening to this. So just make sure you look. And I'll also be putting some information there about me. You can find me on these different platforms with the Spotify, the iTunes, Amazon, YouTube. You can find me on Facebook as The Enlightened Peach, and on Instagram, _enlightened_peach. And then you can always reach out to me in an email, and that is theenlightenedpeach@gmail.com. And I would be happy to have a conversation with anyone who would like to talk a little bit more about all these things about health and longevity and loving yourself. But I do have a program that I'm working on right now, will be out really soon. And it is a lot about how we tend to be so ultra critical of ourselves. Especially women are so critical of their bodies, and if they don't look like what this person does on Instagram, and that's the reason why these filter things have become so big, because people don't even want to show up as themselves. And so it's all about embracing who you are, learning to be the healthiest self you can be, and loving yourself and showing that out to the world. And so I will be posting a link to that. And so do you have any last thing you want to say, or do you feel like you're good?
Just one last thing.
Okay.
Because of what you just said, this flowed very well. Think about this. People are looking for happiness. And then when they get to what they thought it was going to be happiness, they want something more. And so they never really get to be happy. And the reason why is we have to understand that instead of comparing, that we are enough. So I leave you with this. You are enough. Repeat that tonight. I'm enough. I'm enough. And you're going to stop actually almost automatically stop this will that it makes you like, well, when you get the car that you wanted, and a year later you want another car, and now you want to have the body of that, like you said, of this model, and no, we are enough. We were created in the image of God. You are enough. That's it. That's pretty much it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And one thing I would invite everybody to do, because of some of the things that George has said, is that tonight before you go to bed, I want you to make a note of 5 things that you're grateful about who you are. And then do that every single day, and your life will change. You agree with that, George? I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yes. All right. So that's your task, everybody that's here, and change your life.
Thank you so much again for inviting me, and I hope this will help many people.
Well, I hope so, and I'm sure it will. So anybody that's watching, make sure you like, comment, share, whatever you can to get this message out to the masses even more. So thank you so much.
Thank you.